naturally, there's a lot of investment in the silicon layer of AI.
First election, major election at least, with AI in the middle of it.
Don't have to be Intel to push chips anymore.
This week, what's been happening in the last week?
Should we go through the news?
Let's go through some news.
So first of all, we had 2 ecosystem events here in Sydney. So shout out to Annie from Aura Ventures.
Yeah, the AI builder, Annie's been involved in that sort of early stage AI space in Sydney for a long time. She's fantastic, trying to build communities much like we are. I think they've been having a builder group that have been working on some concepts. So they had 25 companies, 25 founders come and pitch their ideas last week. It's a long event, but it was great to see all these early stage ideas. What did you think of the event?
First of all, well done for Aura Ventures and Annie for doing this great work. And second, it's a nice sign about the ecosystem where it's at. And I always knew that Australia is often a few years behind. And I think that's also applied to the VC kind of the innovation scene, but it's coming. It's really nice to see. I think there's a new generation out there that wants to do a startup. They grew up into its ethos of that's what they want to do. People who are now 40 something, they didn't grow up wanting to do a startup. In Israel, where I grew up, and in Silicon Valley in the US, there's definitely a generation of kids that wants to do a startup, and that's going for 20, 25 years. But the current generation is in Australia that wants to do a startup, that's determined to give it a shot and trying and believes this is actually a great way to do a career.
A lot of the younger people are going, actually, I want to go and work in these spaces. This is exciting. There's not the sort of prestige and romance around working for those companies when they're not working with ethics and values, and we've sort of seen that come out. People are working with purpose, and I think that's what's really great as well, seeing people passionate about developing solutions, and that's where we want to be as well, is helping people. Using this technology to move humanity forward in a lot of ways. We obviously want a commercial outcome, but I think there's that combination that can happen right now.
So check this out. So yesterday I was going through the news and I saw Canva finally released their much awaited AI developer tool set, I guess, feature set. Some guy on YouTube basically walked through what's possible with Canva these days. You still have this interface where you say, I'd like to have a kangaroo on the space riding a bike in a serene environment. You have to describe in rich words the thing you want and hope for the best. And I thought that's a great example of why using words to describe what you want in visual, we're going to look back at that and says that was stupid. Textual based algorithmic development of images, it can't be the way. If I feel like that car, I want to put it on that big background, I'm not going to start talking to this AI. It says hey, listen, make the time of the day a little bit more, a bit less. You have to have a visual. You have to have more Photoshop style. And I like the idea of a search-based approach to finding what you want. This week in the news, we see that OpenAI will host its first developer conference on November 6th. That's a big deal, in my opinion, and here's why. There's a lot of talk about what's the next big platform shift, right? So once upon a time, mainframe was the main platform and all the developers coded to mainframe. Then personal computer became the platform. And then the internet was born and there was this argument, is it the next platform or is it an application? And then it was mobile and cloud. Somewhere in the middle happened social. And I remember that Zuckerberg ran his first developer conference. I remember a lot of people raising an eyebrow. What are you talking about, the developer conference? In what way it's a developer in the next computing platform? Social is a computing platform. And it was a time when they were trying to push that. And of course, you build social apps. We want all you to build to the Facebook API. We kind of know that didn't happen. And also it just didn't make logical sense. And then AI happened and there's massive interest because everybody believed this is the next computing platform. Lo and behold, OpenAI hosts the first developer conference.
I think it's a smart move having developers being supported. They obviously have a lot of competition as well. What's the best platform to develop on? What we're seeing is, a lot of people developing on top of OpenAI and they want to keep that going. So I think it's great. Are you going to go? Should we go? I think this is, like you say, great parallels to Facebook, because at first, why have those conferences? Bringing people together as well is a great thing. So I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Check this out. I need to show you something. So the actual article where this item is, all right, it's TechCrunch. I don't know if you can see how many ads I'm seeing here. It's all HTML5 ads. There was a time where there was a sentiment in the market that we need to kill Flash because it creates annoying ads. And I'm telling you right now, HTML5 is making even more annoying ads. This screen is basically doesn't render from so many ads. That's why the web is gonna die. You're on a website and suddenly you're like, oh my god, there's 45 ads and a bit of text here, and you think this text was generated by an algorithm anyway. For all due respect, Google destroyed the web. Who wants that experience? And that is a driver for new paradigms. Am I wrong? What's next in the news? What else do you got?
I don't know if you saw this video of Peter Diamandis. He had a video of him interviewing himself on his podcast. What they did is they trained an AI model around all of his books that he's written. And then he interviewed himself about the impacts of AI. I thought it was kind of funny but cute, but equally was pretty good. You know, what they did is they overlaid a AI video version of himself with his voice. It does make me think when you write something, you're going to have an LLM that's trained against your book or a video, and you can start to potentially hire yourself out.
There was a podcast about it in A16Z the other day, and it starts with like note-taking apps, productivity tools. If you can have an LLM trained basically on all the stuff I ever created, and you call it my second drawer, that's pretty useful. And they wants to live forever. These guys are talking about immortality, and they're saying one day they should be able to upload their consciousness and their personality and leave their physical body. Is it going to happen? Like, maybe. But is it great? Like, I don't know. Like, imagine Donald Trump or Stalin living forever. I mean, who wants to occupy the same world with those guys? You know, like, there's something good about mortality. But I don't know. I think they're going somewhere. What do you think? No?
There are some examples where, you know, I think there are people that could be dying, people that are parents that may want to be able to give their thoughts forward to their children, and to have a child being able to ask something of their parent who's no longer there and get something that feels like them in their words or in their style. So I think quite emotionally about this actually is that I feel there are people that you'll miss, and it would be nice to be able to converse with them in some... I know it sounds weird.
No, it's an ancient idea. It's the reincarnation of the ideas of souls and reincarnations, talking to the deads. All this stuff becomes suddenly like scaringly possible. Like, yeah, sure, here, talk to this guy. He's been trained to be like this person who's dead. And it's hard to tell the difference. Let's move to something completely unrelated. I'm reading here that D-Matrix raised $100 and something million from Microsoft. Have you heard of them?
No, what do they do?
D-Matrix are silicon chip that's good for AI inference. I read their white paper, and they're saying, look, basically in order to push all those AI applications, you need to do insane amount of matrix multiplications, which happen to be the same type of mathematical operation that you do when you run a computer 3D graphic. To know what color a pixel should be in a certain point in the 3D space based on all the parameters around it, you have to do a ton of matrix manipulation. Turns out that to do any neural network applications, you do something similar. You basically manipulate matrices. Now they're saying, look, it used to do it in software, NVIDIA, GPUs, which is graphic processing unit. It became like, oh, we can use that for AI. So it became like biggest gold rush in recent memory, owning GPUs. So naturally, there's a lot of investment in the silicon layer of AI, which lends credence to the concept that yes, it is in fact the next computing platform. When you go all the way to silicon, when you need to build actual integrated circuits and chip, all the big boys are going to silicon fast. And I think that's another trend in the industry, is that how fast we go to silicon these days, because we've got these capabilities of fabless companies. You know, don't have to be Intel to push chips anymore.
Explain what you mean by fabulous.
Well, you know,
not fabulous.
No, not fabulous. Fabless are design and manufacture chips, but they don't own the actual facilities to create. You and I can, in theory, design a chip, get it built, and then use that in our product. When we grew up, the biggest chip maker was Intel. Every computer has a sticker Intel inside. They even had a noise. If you have a unique application, you better make it work on that chip. That's the job. And there was this duopoly between Windows and Intel called Wintel, and that was the dominant computing platform for 20 years, like mid-80s to early 2000. Apple was on a different chipset. It was with IBM, and then they went Intel because IBM sucked at making chips. Apple started designing their own chips, first in their iPhones, and now even on a Mac, right? So they have with M1, M2, and so forth. And then when they do that, they're able to make their products run better on the chips, and they're not kind of locked into the innovation pace of Intel. That's called vertically integrated, right? So Apple goes vertically integrated. When you see the big tech giants, they go in vertical integration, that's actually great, because great for who? Great for them, great for, I think, consumers, because when the chip is purposefully designed for the application, you get like 10x, 100x in performance boosts, right? Because the chip just does whatever it needs to do in silicon. That's the news. I think the news of like startup, Series B, $110 million to build another AI optimized chip for inference. So it will do in theory better than NVIDIA. Now, I wouldn't bet against NVIDIA here. They have massive lead and massive amount of money at this stage. So that's an example of the giants like Microsoft and others putting bets that are and enable them to build better, to invest in basically basically better underlying technology.
NVIDIA have this $1 trillion valuation. There are a lot of people going, hold on, how do we get to be part of this? All of the big players and even some of the new players, they need to have their bit of AI in there. And I think that's the risk and the opportunity in this space is people are doing things for the sake of doing things. It's different with hardware, but particularly with software. One of the key things is AI is not the solution. AI is part of the features of a product. AI isn't the product itself. We need to keep remembering that whilst we love all this, it's really about doing something useful with it. And we touched on that last week that NVIDIA, they are the leader, but for their valuation, they should be the leader in terms of that. But the question is, can they keep that going for the foreseeable future? I see that, but the long term, we'll see if that's the case. Something I found was kind of interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, there was a Times 100 people of AI. Maybe you'll be in there one day, Dror.
You are my favorite. You're my favorite.
So who's your favorite on the top 100 list, Dror?
By far, Sam Altman is, for me, the man of the year in AI. And I just don't know what Mark Andreessen is doing in this list. It's not my list favorite. I just raised an eyebrow. I didn't like his take about AI safety. He wrote a big, long article about it, which was full of nonsense. And it made me doubt whether he thought about it deeply or he was just stuck in the Silicon Valley bubble, if you know what I mean.
Look, I like Mark Andreessen. I think he sees a positive way forward. So I do like what he says in that sense. One of the people that I really liked on the list was Kai-Fung Lee. I've read a couple of his books, which I thought were really great. They are Black Mirror-esque. He wrote this book, AI 2041, stories around where the future is and some of the implications of what we're seeing in this space. And prior to that, he wrote a really great book as well around AI superpowers and talking about China and America in terms of who's going to be the superpower in terms of AI.
So who is going to be the superpower?
I think China definitely has an advantage. We have all these rules and regulations. I think if you don't have those and you can train on any data that you want, I think that definitely will be a way of advancing quicker. But the question is that going to be a good thing for society? So I think China will advance quicker and definitely over Europe.
And there's a real question around how much you can control speech and thought and whether that is conducive to innovation or not. So the open innovation model of the West in liberal democracies, I think it's something we tend to maybe not notice. Actually, where does innovation happen faster and better? I wouldn't dismiss the West's ability to move, even though that there's a big cacophony called democracy, which a lot of people argue, and some people dismiss that as decadence or stagnation. But in fact, it's what innovation and openness looks like.
Did you see that article in the Washington Post about Google requiring politicians to disclose their use of AI in ads? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love it. It's a necessary requirement. You can't have deep fakes, personal propaganda. You can't have it without regulation. What do you think?
The question is whether they can do it. First election, major election at least, with AI in the middle of it. In terms of the deep fake side, we've already seen what having Cambridge Analytica and some of the other companies already involved. This is the next level. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out.
There's an article in The Verge. Google Meet's new AI will be able to go to meetings for you. So basically it's, Otter AI, the little extra person that joins meetings these days and records everything. Now that's a feature that's being baked into Google Meet. What do you think is going to happen to Otter because of that?
So look, I think they'll have a version that needs to go across products. But I think if that's where your primary focus is, if you're developing products just for one platform, the big players are going to really own that.
Apple is reportedly spending millions of dollars a day in training AI. Have you read that article in Substack? They listen to our podcast, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Clearly. We talked about Apple last week. And last one is New York Times, CNN, and Australia ABC block OpenAI GPT bot web crawler from accessing their content.
So what happened there?
OpenAI have a crawler that they announced. You know how OpenAI has been trained up until 2021 or something? And you ask it something, it says, I don't know, I haven't been trained. So guess what? They will open up a crawler and they will continuously train the AI on content. Once they announce a crawler, immediately some big names blocked the crawler. So that if you ask ChatGPT, summarize me the headlines of New York Times today and compare it to last month, it can't do it in theory. Is it going to last?
I think it will. Our data is money. And I think this is the thing that's got to be worked out as well, which is how do we control our own data and how do we monetize it if that's what we want to do? And if people are using my data, I want to be paid for it. I want to be able to control what's there. So whether that be an organization or an individual, that is what I feel will happen definitely in the future. And there's a solution to be made.
Okay, but get this. They can block the crawler, but they can't block an agent that works on my device from accessing their website. I can just say to my virtual assistant, hey, read the New York Times for me real quick and tell me everything I need to know for the meeting with my investors or something. But that's not a crawling, that's just surfing.
The way you get around that is the law. So terms of use, some of the smaller models that are trained on other models, that's also some of those things have been done are not strictly legal because they're not following the terms of use of using those applications. So that's how people might get around it to stop that happening, and using lawyers is probably the thing there. So look, I think we've probably run out of time. I've got to get out of here.
Get out of here.
Another This Week in AI. Hey, we're going to start a newsletter as well. I think that's what we need to do. We're going to capture some of the things we don't have in this discussion. All right, that's This Week in AI. I'll catch up with you next week, Dror.
Bye-bye.
Bye.